In 1866, Charles Goodnight nailed a grub box to the back of a wagon and invented a metabolic protocol that would fuel 500,000 men through the most brutal conditions on Earth. They call it trail cooking. But Vaxalis reveals it was actually the pinnacle of nutritional stoicism. Before convenience culture convinced us that cooking in one pot was primitive, cowboys used cast iron and fire to create gut-healthy environments that modern probiotics cannot replicate. Number 8 on this list was banned from polite dinner conversation for a century, yet it contains more bioavailable protein per dollar than anything in your store today. And number 1 was so effective at sustaining peak human performance that railroad companies secretly copied the recipe to fuel their crews. Hit that subscribe button. Let's count down the 10 smartest longevity meals from the open range. 10. Vinegar Pie, the glycemic blunter. On the open range, luxuries like lemons and cream were non-existent. A clever trail cook would mix apple cider vinegar, sugar, and flour into a sourdough crust. From a Vaxalis perspective, this is a masterclass in glycemic management. The acetic acid in the vinegar does more than just mimic the tartness of lemons. It slows down gastric emptying. This blunts the blood sugar spike of the sugar and flour, providing the Cowboys with a reward that didn't result in a metabolic crash. It was a monument to ingenuity, making a high-performance brain treat out of poverty staples. 9. Camp flapjacks, the B vitamin fermentation. The mother starter was treated with more care than the horses. If a cook lost his starter, he faced a mutiny. Why? Because the sourdough fermentation process was their primary source of B vitamins. The wild yeast and lactobacilli break down the phytic acid in the grain, which would otherwise block the absorption of magnesium and zinc. By frying these in the rind of sow-belly fat, the cook provided sustained energy that lasted 12 hours in the saddle. It wasn't just a pancake, it was a pre-workout fuel delivery system with better bioavailability than any modern performance bar. 8. Trail chili, the capsicum engine. Authentic trail chili has no beans. It is a historical fact rooted in necessity. It was composed of dried whole chilies, hand-ground meat, and rendered tallow. The Vaxalis truth here is the capsaicin protocol. Dried whole peppers provide a complex spectrum of heat and polyphenols that modern chili powder destroys during processing. This capsicum acted as a natural anti-inflammatory for the Cowboys' joints and a thermogenic igniter for their metabolism. It was a dark, ferocious medicine that supported cardiovascular health for less than $2 a pot. 7. Sow-belly and greens, the fat-soluble sink. Sow-belly was salt pork cured until it was half salt and half fat. Trail cooks would render this fat and add wild greens like dandelion or mustard weed. This is a masterclass in fat-soluble vitamin absorption. The vitamins A, K, and E found in those bitter greens cannot be absorbed by the human body without a lipid carrier. By wilting them in animal fat, Cowboys were extracting more nutrition from weeds than a wealthy man eating a lean steak at a hotel. It was free food turned into a high-density antioxidant shield. 6. Pemmican stew, the ancestral fuel tank. Cowboys learned this from the Plains Indians. Pemmican was dried meat pounded fine and mixed with rendered tallow and berries. Dropped into a pot of boiling water, it became a stew that could sustain a man through sub-zero conditions. From a Vaxalis standpoint, this is the ultimate ancestral ketogenic fuel. The tallow provided the stable saturated fats needed for testosterone production and cellular membrane repair. It was a waxy, dense energy cake that kept warriors and cowboys alive when nothing else would grow. Fat was not the enemy. It was the biological fuel that built the West. Pattern break, the U.S. Army footnote. In 1898, the U.S. Army published a report calling the cowboy diet nutritionally deficient to justify moving to processed rations. But they buried a secret in the footnote. The cowboys on this diet performed extreme physical labor for 180 days straight without a single supplement. Meanwhile, the men on the improved processed rations reported lower energy and more illness. The industry sold us a lie, and we've been paying for it with our health ever since. 5. Sourdough biscuits, the probiotic mother. Modern specialty bakeries charge a premium for artisan sourdough, but in 1875 it was simply Tuesday. The fermentation process did more than make the bread rise. It created a microbial matrix that supported gut health. Sourdough is rich in lactic acid, which improves the absorption of minerals from the iron in the Dutch oven. By eating these poor man's biscuits, Cowboys were maintaining their microbiome in conditions that should have destroyed it. We traded this free daily bread for bleached white nutrient-void loaves, and our collective digestion has never recovered. 4. Son of a gun stew, the organ multivitamin. When a calf was butchered, nothing was wasted. The heart, liver, tongue, and kidneys all went into the pot. This is what Vaxalis calls the nose-to-tail miracle. The liver is the world's most potent source of vitamin A, while the heart is loaded with coenzyme Q10. The marrow gut provided a richness no muscle meat could match. It was the great equalizer. Trail bosses and low hands ate from the same pot because everyone recognized the biological power of organ meats. It was a multivitamin disguised as a meal, providing the zinc and iron needed for peak endurance. 3. Pot liquor. Soup, the mineral extraction. When the greens were gone, the dark, salty liquid left behind, the pot liquor, became the base for the next pot of beans. This is cumulative cooking. Every time a cook reused the pot liquor, he was concentrating the magnesium, potassium, and folate leached from previous batches. Modern food culture throws this liquid gold down the drain. Cowboys knew that the broth was the most nutritious part. By thickening it with a handful of cornmeal, they created a mineral-dense soup that supported heart rhythm and muscle contraction for pennies. 2. Cowboy Coffee, the polyphenol extraction. This wasn't a drip coffee. It was boiled in a pot directly over the fire. Biologically, the longer extraction time and higher heat resulted in a much higher concentration of chlorogenic acid and antioxidants. Cowboys drank it black. No sugar, no cream. This high-intensity caffeine dose served as a metabolic booster, helping them oxidize fat for fuel before the sun came up. In 1900, companies like Folgers launched campaigns to call this brewing method primitive. They sold us an inferior product and convinced us it was an upgrade, while the original was a superior performance enhancer. 1. Salt pork and beans, the microbiome anchor. This is the foundation of the West. Dried beans were soaked and then simmered for 8 hours in a sealed Dutch oven with diced salt pork. What happened inside that pot was a biological transformation. The collagen from the salt pork dissolved into the bean liquid, creating a gelatinous matrix that repaired the gut lining. Food scientists have found that the slow, steady heat in these sealed pots created beneficial microbial compounds similar to fermented foods. Cowboys eating this every night were inadvertently bulletproofing their gut health. It is the cheapest, most effective gut-healing protocol in history, and it is time we brought it back to our tables. The one-pot meals of the open range weren't just about calories, they were about dignity and resilience. We traded the butyrate of the beans and the collagen of the salt pork for processed convenience that leaves us nutritionally bankrupt. My challenge to you: don't throw away your pot liquor this week. Make the salt pork and beans the way it was meant to be made. Reclaim your biological sovereignty. Which of these fire-born meals does your family still remember? Let me know in the comments if the Vinegar Pie, Darster 10, surprises you. At Vaxalis, we are harvesting the fire of the past to fuel a stronger future. I am the Vaxalis Doctor. Thanks for watching.